Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the podcast where a real statistics professor
And the Luigi to his Mario, Jake.
gives you sports betting tips. I am Professor Sides. You can follow me and find all my picks on Twitter at Professor Sides. You can follow my friend Jake on Twitter at myfriend_Jake. Today is Wednesday, February 9th, 2022, and this episode covers today's best college basketball bets. In case you're new here, I have built a mathematical model that predicts what the spread and total should be for every Division I college basketball game. That information, along with a graded A, B, or C pick for each of today's games, is available in the Google Sheet that is linked in the show's description. A picks are the ones I love, B picks are the ones I like, and C picks are the leans. However, please remember that good and bad variance will occur. So as much as I'd like to say the model will be profitable each and every day, that is an impossible reality for any gambler. Jake, I say this in 2 days in a row. It's been one of those good variance days, right? It's been a fantastic week for the model. It's up ROI over 23% for the week. Obviously not sustainable, but we need these nice big runs to handle out when there are the bad variance days. Game breakdowns, I went 5-0 again. So that's 10-0 for me on the game breakdowns for the week. Again, that won't continue either. I'd love that. That'd be fantastic, right? But
that's an absolutely incredible run.
Yeah, you're not going to go undefeated for too long, but it's fun while it lasts. A lot of good games last night. A lot of interesting finishes. We didn't talk about it at all yesterday, but I just want to mention, just in case y'all missed it, the first half, second half totals in the Clemson North Carolina game were mind-blowing. The first half had, I think, like 3 points total, and the second half had about 212-ish. I think those are approximate numbers. Pretty close. That was bonkers. If you missed that, just go look into. I don't know what they drank it. They drink the MJ, juice from Space Jam, the secret stuff, right? Yeah. Other than that, Jake, what do you have for us from last night?
Well, Purdue absolutely showed in the second half why they were a number one ranked team. I mean, absolutely took off. They were down 2 at half, I think, and then just boom, pushed it out to almost 20 real quick. And Illinois looked confused and lost, and I would be too. Illinois was not shooting well, and then every time he turned around, there was Jaden Ivey was making a huge play, or Sasha was draining a big three. They couldn't breathe last night.
They couldn't miss.
Yeah. And then, man, Auburn, woo. They only lose in overtime, apparently, so that's something fun.
Good to know, right?
But Arkansas forced 23 turnovers, killed their three-point shooting. I think they kept Auburn to like 20-something%. I mean, Jabari Smith and Walker Kessler had great games, but I mean, Arkansas played out of their mind, just like they need to, and probably, honestly, knocked their way into March Madness right there, because like they've got a few other big games on the schedule, and if they can win 1 or 2 in the SEC tournament, they'll have a decent seed. But I think that win will put them over the bubble there.
I think they've won 9 straight now. Is that right? They're starting to play a whole lot better, right? Earlier in the season, Arkansas was a little up and down, didn't quite know what to make of them. Kind of a disappointment, in my opinion, early on, but really getting it rolling now. I mean, it's the right time to do it. And Auburn, you talk about losing overtime. I thought it was interesting. You kind of mentioned I'd forgotten about that UConn loss. That seems like ages ago. And I remember when that happened, that game going to overtime and that just being kind of a wonky ending there. And just to think that was the only other loss that they have all season until last night is just kind of crazy. I mean, Auburn's still a very, very good team. Just kind of ran into a team playing as well as they can. Wrong time of the season on the road, right? That happens. No one's going to go undefeated. So taking nothing away from Auburn, just give Arkansas credit.
Yeah, a great picture of Muss out there with his arm in a sling, no shirt, as they storm the floor. Like, that's just like that. He's going to be a coach there for a long time because people are going to love stuff like that. And there's nothing really to do with Fayetteville, so he's going to be a hero there with wins like this.
Yep. Before we get to today's slate, reminder, like, subscribe, follow, rate, all of those things. We appreciate them, and they help us out a ton. Drop a comment if you're on YouTube. We love those, and we try to respond to as many as we can. Tonight, we have a ton of games, a little over 50, I believe. We're going to start off with 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central. Houston is now a 7.5-point favorite as of this morning at SMU. The model makes this about 7 for Houston. I locked in yesterday Houston -6 as a B pick. So a couple things. There tends to be about one of these games now per morning that moves a little bit like this. So just as a reminder, you can follow on Twitter I will post every time I update that Google Sheet, anytime I lock in a pick. So you would have been able to jump in at 6 last night with me. That would have helped now as the numbers moved out. I still think this number is probably a little bit low. Houston was a little concerning after those injuries, but they've played surprisingly well. They've been a great team to back. And the last thing I'll point out, the model has liked SMU this year. The model's gone 4-1 on A or B picks of SMU, but the model kind of thinks this is the time to flip now. Houston, just a different class of team. I know it's on the road. Um, as good as SMU is, I just don't think they have the horses, pun intended with them being the ponies, right, to hang with the Cougars tonight. Jake, what's your take?
Yeah, I'm with you there. I still think the 7.5 is a little too low. This Houston team is like an incredible team. There's not a ton of star talent on this team anymore, like after losing Sasser, but I mean, this might be Sampson's best coaching job of his career. Like
Yep.
the way he has handled all these injuries, losing three of their best, and now Walker Jr. is questionable for tonight. I don't know if he's going to play. But I mean, he lost Caleb Mills to Florida State, and he has still got this team performing at a top 5 level and really not talked about. I don't understand why they're not being talked about. They're incredible defense, really good offense, and SMU just turns the ball over a little too much with about 18% of their possessions ending in a turnover. So that's going to lead to a lot of points for this very good Houston team. But Kendrick Davis is the guy to watch. He's so much fun for SMU. Like he is just a fun guy to watch. He averages about 19 and a half points, and he's a little guy too. So it's just kind of fun to watch him go around and just make fools of people. But I don't think he's going to quite get to his average tonight. I think this Houston team is good enough to contain him, and that's one of the big reasons I think this number is too low.
Yeah, you talk about Houston not getting a lot of respect. It's a good point. I mean, almost every projection system that you can look at has Houston as top 5, and they're not talked about like a top 5 team, but they are really good. And like you said, all praise in the world to Kelvin Sampson, who, if you had any doubt of him being a Hall of Fame coach after what last year getting to the Final Four, and now this year, like you said, one of the greatest coaching jobs he's ever going to be able to have. I mean, just fantastic back-to-back years for him. Literally putting on a coaching clinic down there, showing you how to do it. Houston, I think, Jake, you agree with me here, the side to be on tonight. Another game between a couple mid-majors that should be a little interesting, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, Missouri State at Drake. It's a 3-point spread. The model is taking the under. Yesterday I locked in 143. Now it's at 142. The model thinks it should be closer to 141. Interestingly enough, the model has played exclusively overs on these two teams. Missouri State hasn't really been an over team, though. Drake slightly to the over, but nothing concerning, not like maybe a Northwestern State or somebody who just decides, let's try to get to 200 total points every game. And so the model going under here, also with a tight game, right? Possessions are going to matter. Look for the possessions to slow down in the second half. A handful of using the full shot clock, looking for the best shot possible, keeps us under the total. Jake, who's going to win this one?
I'm leaning Missouri State to pull it out. I definitely like them plus the points here. These teams are very similar in how they play and how their makeup is and where they rank in almost every statistic. Really, they're within a few spots of each other. But Drake, for some reason, just has not been able to cover at home. They're 3-7 against the spread at home, and that's just not very good. Like that's not a way to make money as picking a team that's covering less than half the time at home. Um, they both, like you said, take care of the ball very well. They shoot the ball well. They're not nothing special defensively, but not bad. Missouri State's a little more efficient on the offensive end, ranking 18th, where to Drake's 32nd. But Drake ranks right around Alabama and Auburn, just to kind of give a kind of range of where they're at. But it should be a fun 2-man matchups on either side with Tucker Derives and Garrett Strutz for Drake, with George Pym and Isaiah Mosley going at it for Missouri State. It should be a fun watching those 1-2 punches go at each other. I think Missouri State just gets the better of them because I think Isaiah Mosley is just a little bit better of a player. But that's where I think the difference is. But it wouldn't surprise me if Drake won by like 1 or 2, but I think Missouri will pull it out.
All right. Yeah, should be an interesting one there. So if you have the opportunity, check those out. Give some love to the smaller schools there. At the same time, we have Baylor at Kansas State. Baylor out to a 6-point favorite right now. The model makes it closer to 7, so I locked in a B pick yesterday on Baylor minus 5.5. Of course, depending on the book, right? If you shop around, I always encourage people to have 2 or 3 books. Shop around, you can grab a 5.5, a 6, right? Half a point here and there just by that. This one's an interesting game for me. Baylor really struggling of late. Jake, what's your take?
I'm on I'm on Baylor, and it's more to do with how um, Kansas State is struggling here recently. They're more of they're just having such a hard time. They're not doing great defensively, and that was their calling card beforehand because they don't. Their offense isn't wonderful at all. They only scored about 67 and a half a game, and they've lost 7 of their last 11. And one of those was to Baylor by almost 30. So I don't think the home court advantage is going to make up 20 plus points. I think Baylor gets it done. It's really just health. They're 15-0 when fully healthy, but as they've missed pieces here and there, that's where they've started dropping games. So with LJ Cryer questionable tonight, I think it's a little closer than their previous matchup, but I still think they get it done in the 10 to 15 range.
All right, then another Big 12 game. We've got the 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, Tech minus 3.5 at Oklahoma. The model is taking over 127.5. It's under 127 right now. Tech has been an under team. They obviously have a great defense, but they can go over. They've done it a few times this season. It's all about playing the number. I like the fact that this is still under 130. I think they can get there. Just a side note with Tech, of course, when Tech goes under the number, they go way under the number. And so hopefully we can avoid that fate. But if they don't have, as long as we can avoid one of those 52 to 45 type whatever ugly games that they occasionally find themselves in, I think this number is too low and we can get over that total. Jake, which side are you on?
Yeah, I'm on Texas Tech. I've been riding them all year. There's no reason to stop, especially with this Oklahoma team. They have all of a sudden all their steam just went away, and they've lost 4 of their last 5, and they've only scored above 65 once in those 4 losses, um, while allowing about 70 points a game. So that they're on average losing by about 5, and this Texas Tech team only allows about 60 points and then scores about 75. Oklahoma is going to need an absolutely massive game out of Tanner Groves and then some help to get through this Texas Tech defense. And I just don't think they have it. I think the way Texas Tech plays, they're going to take advantage of every turnover, and it's going to be big. And I don't think Oklahoma will force enough turnovers for a slightly sloppy Texas Tech team to make this get down inside the single digits. I think it's going to be about 10 to 15 point game.
Yeah, it sounds like we're looking for about a 70 to 60 Tech win on this one, which seems very plausible with these two teams. You talked about Groves, of course. He's a fantastic player. We've mentioned it before in this pod. He kind of is all Oklahoma has, and that's unfortunate because if he had someone else to go with him, maybe a couple guys or whatever, this Oklahoma team has some potential to make a run in the tournament, but it's all on his back. And so they'll go as far as he carries them. And that can work potentially in the first round. But at some point when you get up against a team that can handle that and can scheme against that, they're gonna have trouble doing anything if somebody stops him.
Yeah, we saw what he did with Eastern Washington in that
Mm-hmm.
Kansas matchup in the NCAA tournament last year. So he can carry a team. He just needs
It's
just
just
a little bit of help, from somebody, because to get through. But playing at Eastern Washington, much easier to make the tournament than going through a nasty Big 12 this year.
Yeah. At some point, right, we talk about the Big 12 is loaded and all the teams are good, right? But 9 teams probably aren't going to make it, and so they are kind of clawing at that bottom to be one of those teams, right? Will 7 make it? Will 8 make it? And if so, right, which couple teams are left out of that? And Oklahoma's fighting to not be one of those. So yeah, big games here for Oklahoma in February, and of course the conference tournament will be large for them as well. Also in that late time slot, we have Tennessee at Mississippi State. Tennessee a short 1.5 point favorite, so that should be a close game. Total of 136. The model thinks it should be over 137. So yesterday I locked in a B pick on the over 135.5. The model is 6-2 on Mississippi State over edges this season. I don't see any reason why that trend stops. I think this number is a little bit too low, so we have a bit of an edge there. So take the over here and root for points. Jake, who wins this tight matchup here to close out the evening on the late game?
Even though it's on the road, Tennessee's been playing better. I'm taking Tennessee. Uh, I mean, -1, really just taking them to win. Uh, but they, believe it or not, they're 3-0 as a road favorite. So when they have been favored on the road, they do. It's been in good spots. They just picked a terrible time to lose Kamwa. Like they, like losing him is hurts anyway. But when you're going against a team that's got a good front line like this Mississippi State team, it's going to be it's a bad timing. But so they need Plosic and Fulkerson to really step up, and maybe even Huntley Hatfield to eat those minutes. And they're really going to need a good shooting night from Chandler and Vescovi and the rest of their guards. Maybe Powell or Victor Bailey shows up, eats some minutes because Kamal was able to step out and hit some threes. So it's a big loss for the Tennessee team. But I think they've got enough to get it done. Mississippi State's not the greatest offense in the world. Iverson Molinar is really the only guard you have to worry about, and Mississippi State as a team turns it over about 18% of the time, and I think that's too much for a Tennessee team that forces about 18 turnovers a game and averages about 10 to 11 steals a game. And so they're a very high pressure defense, and I think it's going to be a little too much for Mississippi State to overcome. And I think Tennessee gets another road win and kind of continues the streak they're on because they're hitting about in the last three they've hit about 50% of their threes. So they may have finally broke out of that cold streak, but and that helps you over if they keep that shooting percentage up.
Yeah, it reminds me of the last night's game, Wyoming Utah State. Right, I had the over. We didn't talk about it on pod, but I had the over, and then you had Wyoming, and I guess we talked. You had a buzzer beater, right? But we didn't talk about the total. I had the over on that one. Of course, it gets to the end of the game, and we were kind of rooting for the same thing: get to overtime, get us over. Then Wyoming wins by 2, covers your 1.5. I feel like we're kind of rooting for the same thing here. Let's get to overtime.
Yeah.
Tennessee wins by 2. Everybody wins. We go home happy, right?
Yeah, I prefer this to get the over in regulation. Being a Tennessee fan, I don't know if I can go through the heartache of overtime, but I'll take the win where I can get it.
Exactly. And that leads us to our buzzer beaters, your exclusive pod content here. The A+ play of the day. I'm laying 10 with UNC Asheville tonight. The model has not it made that calibration. I tweeted about this a little bit. It was getting a little favorite heavy. And so calibrated the model here entering Sunday. It's done really well since then. It's not calibrated to take big favorites. That's kind of by design. So when it does like a big favorite, I say let's roll. It really likes UNC Asheville -10, so I'm rolling with that as the A+ play of the day. Similar logic here for the best B side. A late game for Florida State. It's a 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central start. I'm laying 10.5 with Florida State versus Pittsburgh. The model is when it's only time it's backed the Seminoles on an A or B pick, and it's 4-2 on pit fades. Pittsburgh is really bad, people, and so I think this is one where Florida State just wins by 20, puts everybody to sleep there with that late tip off. Every dog has its day, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, North Florida. I'm taking them plus 120 on the money line as a B pick against Bellarmine. Don't be fooled by the records. The records are very different, but North Florida is the 77th ranked strength of schedule according to Ken Palm. Bellarmine's up into the mid 100s. So North Florida, not a great record, but they've kind of earned some of those losses by playing some better teams, relatively speaking. At home, I think this is a toss-up, right? Bellarmine is the better team, but at home, I think it's a toss-up. So you're getting plus 120, you're getting value, right? These aren't always going to hit, but every once in a while we can get those plus odds there on these 50-50 games. I think that's a great value. The plug your nose and play anyway. I have a doozy for you here. 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Eastern, Binghamton plus 17.5 at Vermont. Look, Vermont, don't be cruel. Just go out and win by 14. Everybody's happy, right? There's no reason for you to go out and win by 30 or something. We know Vermont is capable of this, and the fear sometimes these plug your nose and play games, sometimes things just get out of hand. It happened last night. But in the situation where we can avoid Vermont just completely, being unable to miss situation, right, like that, this is a situation where conference games don't tend to end up in 20-point victories. They can occasionally, but overall, I like getting a ton of points there, getting over 2 touchdowns and the field goal. And a little afternoon delight, I'm kind of squeezing this in. We'll call this the late afternoon delight, the standalone earlier in the day games. If you're looking for a little action early on your Wednesday evening here, 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central, Cornell at Columbia. This game is going to be ugly. I'm taking the under 158.5. It is a lot of points. There will be a lot of points in this one. I'm thinking this is going to be a sleepy second half when you adjust these totals for the expected way the game is going. There are more likely scenarios where this game is a 25-point game, and we have one of those scenarios where the last 4 minutes there's 1 point or something because these teams have just absolutely given up. So that's not to say that will happen. That's helping our odds of getting the under here, even though there will be a lot of points in it. So I think under is the smart play for that late afternoon tip between Cornell and Columbia. Jake, what are your buzzer beaters?
Yeah, I really like your North Florida pick. I think I'm on Bellarmine tonight. But I like the idea of that for a dog because I think it's a look ahead spot for Bellarmine. They're looking for Jacksonville State, and that to determine the 1 seed on that side of their conference. So it could be a good little spot for them. But
All
my
right.
buzzer beaters, I love this San Diego State team. They're really good defensively, and I absolutely love fading San Jose State. It makes me so happy because they were just so bad.
They are really
So
bad.
I think their defense, San Diego State's defense, is enough to get them the 15 they need to cover this, and maybe even more. And then I really like Wake Forest. I think it'll be a fun battle with Alondis Williams and Dearborn going at it. But I think Wake Forest has got a little more help and a little better defensively than what NC State will be. So I think they go into NC State, win by 5 to 10 kind of range, and take care of their business and get us a win there.
All right, and that is all that we have for you today. Thanks for tuning into another episode of Picks with the Professor. Reminder, check out that Google Sheet for all picks and totals for every game today. If you haven't done so yet, click that subscribe button. We'll get you a new episode every weekday of the college basketball season, and we'll do that live chat Q&A session on Saturdays where you can post in the chat about any game you want. We'll let you know what we think. We will see you tomorrow, and until then, remember, you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.